right, today we have Nigel Bennett, author of the book Take That Leap. How are you doing, Nigel?
I'm great, Jimmy. Great,
Excellent,
thanks.
excellent,
Yeah.
good. Well, hey, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, no worries.
And,
it's been quite the journey. I just want to thank you so much for putting in all the effort to turn this book into an audio version, which has been it's been amazing. It's been a great journey here.
Yeah. My pleasure. It was definitely a eye-opening thing to hear in real time, and get a sense of what your whole journey. It's pretty incredible. But so what is your life after this big world trip?
Wow, it's I released the book in January of this year, or last year. Sorry, last year. And it's just been overwhelming. I've had I originally wrote the book for my kids, and just documenting, bits and pieces of my life. But then it just became much bigger than that. And so I've been so fortunate to be invited to speak at so many different events, all over North America. I was actually invited back to MIT to speak there for the Entrepreneurs Masters program.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was my first talk that I did. And then from then it just snowballed. And so from that to podcasts to radio shows and interviews and newspapers. So I'm just overwhelmed with what the book has done. And how it's affected people. So I'm just really humbled by that. It's amazing.
That's great. And how was that as a shift, kind of putting yourself in the spotlight and answering questions?
Yeah, because I'm not used to that. I'm not used to being in the spotlight. I'm kind of the business guy that's always kind of operated kind of in the shadows, I guess. I travel a lot and I had a lot of experience, in different countries, but I've never been in front of audiences before. So, I learned a lot over the past year, and it's just been a riot. It's been so much fun. Yeah,
excellent. That's great. So what's the update with the family? How is I've got up until the end of this book, and like you said, it's been then. As we all know, kids grow up fast, right?
They do. Yeah, my kids now. I mean, when we embarked on our journey, which was 2014, 2015. So Keena, our daughter, was in grade 9, ninth grade, and Devin had just graduated from high school. And our oldest son, Dylan, was in, I think, second year university. And so Devin and Keena came with us for the year, and as we traveled, and we homeschooled our daughter. And Dylan kind of came in and out when he could during breaks. But since we've been back, the coolest thing for me was to have your kids with you, and we were in close proximity in most of the places we stayed. We went to 17 different countries.
Wow.
Yeah, and we stayed in small little apartments where our kids would share a bed, and we'd shop at the local grocery stores. In most countries, English was a second language, which is really interesting. But we just learned so much, and I was able to take my son Devin to most of my business meetings that I had, because I did have some meetings.
Right.
So we were in we'd be in London, and I bought him a cheap suit. And I took him to business meetings with like the International Maritime Organization and people like that, and he would help me with my presentations, which was really fun. And the people there were incredible. They would really welcome him in and have conversations with him. So for a young guy, 17, 18 years old, it was a really great experience. Yeah.
They must have thought he was brilliant, the youngest executive they'd seen,
right?
Walking a board meeting.
In his suit, it was just so funny, and it was great. And then he and my daughter, we asked them, I said, "What do you guys want to do? We're traveling. Like, what do you want to do?" And they both said they wanted to try some acting. So we happened to be in London, and best places in the world for acting schools would be London or New York. So they both went to acting school in London, and they just loved it. They just loved it. And then we would be in other countries like Brazil, and I'd be on an offshore supply vessel offshore. And we'd take a tender boat out with my son, and he'd be wearing the coveralls with a hard hat with the goggles, and we'd be climbing up like the rope, to get on board the ship, in the seas. And then he would be with our crew there, trained on how to use these big, large offshore oil skimming systems, which was amazing. So we had, a diversity of experiences over that year that he traveled with us. But Devin was interesting because, 8 months in, right after Brazil, he said he needed to come home. And Dev he's dyslexic and ADD, like me. So he had a really hard time in school. But he wanted to go back to school, which just didn't make sense to me. But he really wanted to be an actor. So he actually booked his own flight, flew home on his own, and auditioned to get into the Vancouver Film School, got in, and now he's actually a working actor. So
Wow.
yeah, he's done awesome. My daughter, Keena, just thrived during that experience traveling and having to put herself out there in all these different countries, and we homeschooled her. And she now is at going to vet school, vet tech school in downtown Vancouver, and she's got like 3 jobs. She's working up. She's a ski instructor now, and she's just all over the place. And she took off for 2 months after high school, and she graduated recently and traveled to Australia, New Zealand with some friends backpacking. And yeah, and then our other son Dylan, he's great. He's graduated from University of Victoria, and he has a Bachelor of Science in geography and environmental or coastal conservation, and he's working up in northern British Columbia right now. He just got a job, so he's a 2-year contract. So that's and then Reiko, my wife, like it was the best thing that we ever did. And we've actually been back almost 4 years now.
Wow, that's
And the thing people ask me about this all the time, and I say it was the best thing that I ever did. So the best thing I ever did was able to set things up so I could go and do that with my family. But I was that close to making up an excuse that I couldn't make it. And I had a coach, Coach Kevin Lawrence, that I worked with for 10 years. And he helped me along the way set things up. And the last thing on my list was, I think I mentioned it in the book, was, what's the last thing I wanted to do? And I wanted to travel for a year with my family. So he helped me make that happen, but I had so many excuses in my head that I couldn't do it. And I'm so happy that we did it because I look back now, 4 years after the fact, and it's still the best thing that we ever did. Our family just became super tight over that.
And I guess you kind of have a window when you can do that too. That makes sense with your kids at certain ages, before they go out or move out or start into their lives, and it's harder to bring everybody together for 1 year to coordinate all that. I
know. Right? And I'm just starting to realize that now because Dylan, my oldest, he's now, got a job, a 2-year contract in northern British Columbia. So he's gone. He packed up a U-Haul truck on Sunday and he's gone. And with his girlfriend. And so he's off the radar. Like there's no way we could do anything like that now. Devin's, full-time acting and he's doing fire spinning, and he's got another job as well. And Keena's fully engaged in school, something that she's super passionate about. So there's that window in time. It's almost, you can do it when your kids are really young, but I think you get more out of it as a family if you do it from the high school age.
Right. Yeah. I guess they're a little bit older, can comprehend some of those things.
And they make friends. They make friends, no matter where they go. They make friends in all these different countries. And they just learn so much. And our kids now, when we have a conversation, they always go, "Oh, remember the time we were scuba diving here and this shark was whatever." It's just like this experiences that we shared together. And I think if they're younger, they remember, but not quite. It doesn't have the impact as those years. Sure. And those are the years that you can do it as a family. Because after that, who knows, they're gone, work, marriage, grandkids, who knows what's going on. So
life you're
goes
not
on, right? So there's a bit of a sweet spot there that I fumbled upon, which worked out incredibly. Well.
And out of the 3 kids, did you find a difference between either the youngest or the oldest, or the boys, male versus female, as far as like the dynamics of being on this trip? Obviously, you guys are spending all this time together too, so you've got family dynamics involved in spending 24/7.
I know. It's really funny that you say that because at home, when they were younger, they were there's brothers and sisters, right? So they would, have their little squabbles and things like that. They were pretty good. But we always traveled a lot, and we did basic travel. We, trains and little simple accommodations and things. We never went for the fancy route. We wanted them to experience kind of the country. and they got along so well every time we traveled. And it's just they relied on each other and they worked together. And then on this trip, they got along really, really well. I mean, they shared the two. They shared a bed, and it was never an issue.
Yeah.
They never. I don't think they have one squabble or one fight on the whole journey.
Wow.
There. It was really an interesting experiment, I guess.
Yeah.
And they just traveled together, and now they're super tight. I mean, they're always calling each other and FaceTiming each other and Snapchatting 4 times a day between all of them, and it's just really funny to see. It's great.
Oh, that's amazing.
Really cool.
And I'm sure that's an experience that you couldn't recreate any other. Most families are dreading driving up to Whistler with the kids in the backseat
right
at the time.
Right. Yeah. Not that I didn't dread when my kids were small. I mean, that was interesting. But yeah.
Oh, that's great. Well, so I mean, looking back, what would you say are the kind of the top learnings of this big adventure you guys took on?
Yeah, I think that for my wife and I, for Reiko and I, it was really interesting because with 3 young kids, or kids, teenagers, life was always so busy. We were always going to hockey or soccer, or I was coaching this or doing that, and we had no time.
Yeah.
But when you're on this journey like that, there's a lot of time.
Yeah.
And the best part for the two of us, for our relationship, for Reiko and my relationship, is we would get up and the kids would sleep in a little bit sometimes, and we would go down and we'd find a coffee shop and we'd sit outside and we'd sit there for 3 hours sometimes and just sit and talk, watch people, meet people, go to the bakery, have a chat with the baker, the owners of the little bakery shop, and it was just that it was just the quiet and the quiet. It was just something that we very rarely experience.
Yeah.
But when you're on the road like that, it's just time slows down.
Mm-hmm.
Here, time's just going so fast.
Yeah.
Because you're so busy all the time. Time slows down when you've got everybody together and you're kind of on this, on this journey. So the learnings, there was just so many things. And for me, I think as an entrepreneur and a business owner, I think that as entrepreneurs, we sacrifice a lot for our business over our family. Mm-hmm. And, I see it all the time. I belong to this group at MIT in Boston. I go to every year. This is my 15th year this year. And it's a 5-day session. And, my classmates, I've just seen so much of, the struggle to keep the business going and then over time spending less and less time with, your significant other and your kids. And then things start to fall apart.
And then time goes quickly.
And time goes so fast.
All of a sudden, a decade goes by.
Yeah, and next thing you know, you're 50 and you don't know your kids.
Yeah.
And now they're off with their girlfriends or, significant others. They've got married and they don't know you anymore.
Yeah.
And it's, that's the biggest regret I would have if that was the case.
Yeah.
So
do you view, obviously, phones and internet and all those types of things and technology impact everybody, and
sure,
you can't, it's pretty tough to avoid that. But do you kind of view that differently after your family was able to spend that time together?
Yeah,
I would imagine lots of the time without any of those types of technology.
Yeah, a lot of the time we didn't have, or we had basic Wi-Fi. If we were in Myanmar and we wouldn't have any Wi-Fi, we were in Bhutan in the Himalayas, and then you're out and you're in a little hut in the mountains and you're all huddled together to stay warm, or in Argentina in the south where you're trying to stay warm. Yeah. We weren't using our devices that much. I was posting. I had a travel blog that I was trying to update, but the longer I was away, the less I did it. Right. We bought a used guitar in London. We went into London, used guitar shop. We bought a used guitar and we took it to we were doing an experiment, seeing how many countries it would make it to without getting lost or not making it off the plane or what of the boat. And it made it the whole way. Right. And the kids drew on this guitar every time, like they had a marker, they would draw a little thing, Bhutan, here we, and then, Myanmar and stuff. So this guitar came back with all this graffiti all over it. Right. And so we'd play the guitar a lot and hang out and, plunk away. And so it was more things like that, kind of more tactile, like guitars and bongo, whatever we would find.
Yeah.
Surfing, we surfed a lot. So it's more things like that over the technology.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I mean, not that I didn't use the technology and post things. I mean,
Yeah.
my kids get on me that I post way more than they ever do. But Devin barely goes on to his phone. He,
All the social
at all.
media and all
Yeah, he
that
doesn't
stuff. Yeah, yeah.
doesn't look at the social media stuff. So, yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. So what would you say your biggest, riskiest leap in business? Switching over now
Back
a
to
little bit more
business.
to business.
Yeah. Yeah, business is tough. Business is all, it's tough. You're always in that, survival. You always seem to think you're in that survival mode, and it's never enough. But for me, like going way back, the biggest decision I think that I ever made was actually breaking off of my father's business, because I was working for him. I worked for him for 10 years.
Yeah.
And I was flying and living in all these different countries all over the world. And, for me to come back and, he got into a bit of trouble. And for my sister and I to realize that we need to do our own thing was really, really tough. So stepping into his office and saying that, hey, I'm going and my sister's coming with me.
Wow. Yeah.
Was really tough to go off and then set up your own place, and go to the bank and leverage as much as you could for a startup.
Yeah.
Was really tough.
Oh,
and I was just so lucky. I know I mentioned in the book, a couple of contracts that we were able to get. One was from Taiwan, and we were able to get this, and we were in a lot of debt, but we were able to get it, which kind of caught us going.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that was the biggest thing, like way back, was just, I guess, take the leap, to go out and just do it, as opposed to just staying. I could have stayed and worked in the comfort of my father's organization.
Yeah.
I could have, could have been ended up in jail or something if I did.
Well, I mean, I would imagine,
but,
people have, people that have had mentors or, have been with companies for a long time and split off can be difficult. But then adding to that, it's your father.
It is my father.
You have obviously the personal connection to it too.
Yeah.
Must make that even that much more difficult.
It was really tough. It was tough for, I think, both my sister and myself.
Yeah.
To go. And my sister stayed with me at AquaGuard for about 4 years.
Yeah.
And then she went off and did her own thing after that. So
right.
Yeah. So that was tough.
Wow. And obviously in business, people I've heard that to be successful you have to fail, type of thing. So like, what mistakes did you take that you think other people could have avoided in their businesses or try to avoid in their business?
Yeah, I my biggest thing, and I mentioned here, after I hired my coach, he asked me, he says, what's your goal? What do you want? And I said to him, freedom. I just want my freedom. And so what I tried to do, I don't know if it was after that point or before that point, is I wanted to get freedom in the business. So what I did is I kept hiring in general managers to come in and run the business basically for myself and my other business partner. There were two of us at the time. Run the business for us. And every time we brought somebody in from outside, they would last. Well, one guy lasted 5 years, which was quite a long time. The other guy lasted like a year, and the other one was like 8 months or something. I kept trying to buy my freedom or get my freedom via bringing somebody else in.
Right.
Which, naming him a CEO or a general manager or whatever. I changed the name every time. Hopefully it would work, but it didn't. So I had to let them all go. But I didn't realize that I had a younger guy coming up through the ranks for years. And he knew more about the business than anybody. And so he was the right choice to have step in and actually buy out my other partner. I had a minority partner. So bought him out, and he's now the CEO of the business and running it. But he knows more about the business than anybody. So my biggest mistake was parachuting in these guys just because they were, bigger time operators than us, and they were in bigger companies. Their resumes were unbelievable. Yeah. They didn't roll their sleeves up and actually do the work. Yeah. Where this other fellow, Cameron Jans, incredible guy, he learned. He basically came in at 18 and was sweeping the floor. Yeah. And then he worked his way into pulling chain with the oil containment barriers and then the welding machines. And then he got to know our whole supply chain because he was a buyer. And then from there, so he knew all the numbers, and then he knew the sales, and then everything just kind of, he knew everything.
Right.
Yeah, and he's running the business now.
And
Yeah.
so do you feel like because of that he's that much more invested?
Yeah.
I mean, like intellectually to the company and understanding, and it's a could become more of a lifestyle as opposed to the next position for a CEO or a general
Absolutely.
manager or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, I mean, we run our business like it's like a family,
Right.
and I mean, he has the utmost respect from every one of our employees. Like I mean, he'll get in there and he rolls up his sleeves. He'll turn a wrench if he has to. He'll be, at a presentation, he'll be an offshore supply vessel in Brazil, conducting whatever. But he's he's a great leader. He's like he's a great leader.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my one of my biggest mistakes is I tried 3 people parachuting in. So that used up probably 8 or 9 years.
Right.
Where I should have realized this a lot sooner.
Right.
Bringing in people organically through the company.
Yeah. And do you
As opposed to
think that
parachuting in.
offset maybe the experience or lack of experience he would bring into it? Just his buy-in to the company outweighed maybe somebody's business experience that maybe came in from somewhere else?
Yeah, well, I think he had, because he bought into the company, he has more skin in the game for sure. And it's his company, so
Right.
he has more. He really wants to see it succeed.
Yeah.
We're a hired gun. They're getting their salary, dividends, stock options, whatever it may be. But yeah, they could come, for a few years and then go. Where he has skin in the game, so it's his baby. It's his thing. So
Well, hearing some of the stories in the book about the business, makes you, everyone had that mindset of, whatever it takes to get
Right,
it done,
right.
you get it done. It
And
doesn't matter.
we would do that.
if it's dark out, if it's light
No.
out. So that's probably lends itself to that whole theory of
Yeah,
having
and
somebody who's-
everybody's like that. I'm really fortunate, and I mean it's taken a long time to get to that point. But the guys, everybody, guys, girls, everybody, they just jump in and get things done.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh no, it's not my job or what. No, they just it's just
Yeah,
done.
yeah.
They
Watching
do
the
it.
waiting to
And
punch
I
out the
think
clock
it's
or whatever.
because of great leadership and Cameron. The way he leads, people just have the respect for him. Well, if he's going to go do it, well, I can do it.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Wow. That's